Tiffany Bova.
So before I begin, I want to give a shout out to the SMB Alliance for the color of orange today. I got you. In honor of Halloween, I think it's perfect. But as was mentioned, my name is Tiffany Bova. I think this might be my 10th event. I think I've gotten the honor and pleasure to be in front of Ingram Micro Partners, I think coming up on probably 20 sessions somewhere in the globe over the last 13 or 14 years. So it has really been an honor to be invited back in front of such amazing partners and talk about this topic that I have now been focused on over the last couple years since leaving Gartner, and that really is about growth. And I think that everybody in the audience, I'm going to make a big swooping guess here, that you all want to grow your business. So this presentation is really an opportunity for you to hear sort of what I've been hearing as well as what I've been seeing out in the market as I travel the world. This year alone, I think I'm going to cross 300,000 miles in air travel. So I have been talking to people on every continent. I've been on 6 continents this year, having conversations with companies, both startup and large, on what are the challenges facing us around growth. And so in light of the great news yesterday of IBM buying Red Hat, a great quote from Ginny Rometty: growth and comfort never coexist. As Kirk mentioned, as others have mentioned, the first thing we have to do to grow our business and to change is to get uncomfortable. So for those of you who have been following me over the years, I started talking about cloud actually back in 2000. I was at a VAR business event in a room full of partners, and I was talking about managed hosting services. That you no longer needed to sell servers, deploy them, put them in a data center, and then go and break-fix them. You could put them in our data centers, and we would take care of it for you. And it was like I had 7 heads. How dare you take our business? Like, it's all about buying hardware, selling it, deploying it, having a break-fix contract. That's the future. No? What's really great about this particular audience is you guys have made this tremendous transition. You've gotten uncomfortable again and again and again. From being, some of you, white box resellers, to becoming value-added resellers, to becoming solution providers and systems integrators, managed service providers, cloud providers, cloud aggregators, ISVs. You have been moving and getting uncomfortable year after year after year. And that's really the only way you will survive going forward. It is not going to get any more comfortable. It will continue to challenge you day after day. And that's what's really great about these kinds of events, because you get to see sort of what's coming next. Where will the market be going? And then what do you need to do in order to respond to those market changes? So one of the most vexing challenges for businesses today is how to determine how do you grow your business. What are the things you need to do in order to remain successful? Now, it isn't just about you. It's about how do you grow your business, especially your top line, in order to keep the lights on, keep your employees earning paychecks. But more importantly, you guys have hundreds, some of you thousands of customers who rely on you every single day in order to be successful in their business. So without you, they are not going to make it. So how do you respond? Here are some hard, cold truths. 80% of businesses will hit a growth stall at some point in their lifespan. And only a small percentage will recover. So what the challenge here is that you may be growing, it may be slowing, you may not understand why it's slowing, and then how do you recover from that? The next one is only a small percentage of companies will ever grow larger than 5 million in revenue. Now this is an interesting stat, because I often talk to partners and one of the very first things they say to me is how much revenue they earn at the top line. And unless you're publicly traded, it's interesting. But what's more interesting to me is how healthy is the business? How happy are your customers? How happy are your employees? Are you really delivering these compelling solutions that are driving your customers' businesses forward? And so 5 million is interesting if you're driving great profit. 5 million in a cost-cutting business or 5 million in a race to zero on competing it with price is not a winning formula. The next is many companies focus on being the biggest versus being the best at consistent growth. This is a game about consistently growing quarter after quarter, year after year, growing your customer base, solving big, hairy, audacious problems for them. The challenge and the reality is if you hit a growth stall, it can take 2 to 4 years for a company to figure out how to create new growth and execute at scale. So let's go back in 2000 when I started talking about hosting. And then for those of you, when I was at Gartner and I started talking about swim lanes, what kind of partner are you going to be? Are you going to be an on-premise partner? Are you going to be a hybrid partner? Are you going to be a born-in-the-cloud partner? Then I started talking about cloud brokerages and aggregation and integrators and consultants. And everyone was like, you're really slicing this market awfully thin and getting very specific. There were very specific reasons why I was doing it. I had the benefit of having thousands of people who were great thinkers behind me who were showing me where the lighthouse was. And then I sort of translated that to say, where do I think you should be focusing? So this is a 2 to 4 year game. For those of you who are CEOs in the audience, this is the way you should be thinking. Where is the market actually going to? But not all growth is good growth. For me, companies fit into 4 very distinct categories. And I think each of us need to think about which category do you fall into. Number 1, which do you want to fall into? Number 2. Number 3, what do your employees think you fall into? And number 4, what do your customers think? And in no particular order, just some things you need to think about. But the groups are 1, hypergrowth mode. So by a show of hands, let's first start by how many of you in the audience actually want to grow your business? If your hands don't go up, like there's coffee downstairs, all save each other a little time. So how many of you think you're in hypergrowth mode? Like you just put your foot on the gas and it's just like grow, grow, grow. All right? The next one is growing at or slightly above previous years. How many of you think fall into there? All right. The next one is you're starting to see a softness in growth. This is where I see no hands because no one wants their friends who's sitting next to them to know they're feeling a little softness. But for those of you who are bold, seeing a softness in growth, early indicators are present, meaning you need to make some adjustments. You're starting to see a softness. Let me say it another way. You're finding it harder to grow. Nobody. This is awesome. The fourth one is you're in a full-blown growth stall. That is where you are 2 to 4 quarters of no growth or flat growth. So you may be growing, but it's flat or you have no growth. This is the comment of 2 to 4 years, finding your next growth path, adjusting the business, adjusting your employees, new partners to work with, new strategies, potentially even new leadership, new management. It's really difficult to turn yourself out of this corner. So there's 2 things you can do here. 1, you can wait for the fire alarm to go off, which tells you, by the way, when the fire alarm goes off, what happens? There's a problem, there's a fire. You go into a reactive mode. You either leave the building, you get a fire extinguisher. That means you know that something is happening. The fire alarm is not going to tell you a fire is on its way. So, if you're getting an indication and the fire alarm is going off, now is where you need to act. But it's not going to tell you that you're about to hit one. So where do you begin if you're looking for these early indicators? If you're looking for the canary in the coal mine versus waiting for the fire alarm to go off and it may be too late. So this is some new work out of my book. And I start by saying that no decision about growth should happen without understanding the context of your market. Social, economic, industry, regulations, what's happening in your community or in the technology stack. Are there mergers and acquisitions happening? Do you have the right distribution in place? What do customers think of your brand? What do you think of your brand? All of those things are, you have to understand your role, not only in your own company, but in your customer's business. What is your role? And then what is the role in your industry and vertical? If you don't understand your context, there's no way you can make decisions about who you should be partnering with, where you should be making your bets, who you should hire next. So context would be something like me standing up here, let's go back 7 years, 8 years, and me saying, we say that X percentage of IT will shift to the cloud. So the context of the market has shifted. What are you going to do about it? If you're selling a lot of hardware and on-premise software, and you say, this is coming up, how do I adjust my business? That is a context shift. So I'll give an example. Netflix. If Netflix had skipped going straight to streaming and did not mail people DVDs, when they launched, would they have been successful? Probably not. Why not? Because we didn't all have high-speed internet in our homes. We didn't have a smartphone in our hand that could stream something 24/7. There was not wireless everywhere we went, including 35,000 feet in an airplane. So if they had launched straight with streaming, could they have survived? So context means, what can your customer handle? What can the market handle? What is my product? Do those two things match? The next thing you have is that then and only then can you pick the way to grow. So these are the 10 growth paths that I sort of outline in the book. But ultimately, I didn't want to reinvent the wheel. You're not going to look up at this list and go, oh my God, she's totally thought of things I've never thought of. If you've done that, I've done you a disservice. This is really about taking industry-proven ways to grow and modernizing them based on what are the things we currently have at our fingertips around social, around mobile, around cloud, around the democratization of access to bandwidth and finance and funding from PayPal and others, reaching the millions of unbanked customers who have never purchased IT before, have never had their hands on anything e-commerce oriented. That is a significant shift in context, which is what inspired me to say, how do we tell this story a little bit differently? Then once you have context and you pick the growth path you want to be on, the next thing you have to do is thinking about the combination of activities that you actually want to do. This is about a multiplier effective, looking at multiple things that you can do to make it happen. So I'm going to give another example. So for those of you who have teenage daughters, maybe are in their early 20s, Kylie Jenner, which from the famous Kardashian family, has been able to build a $675 million business in less than 3 years. Whatever you may think of the family, doesn't matter. I'm telling you, how could she do that? By the way, with less than 20 employees. With less than 20 employees. It had to be a combination of distribution partners, R&D partners, manufacturing partners. It had to be in combination with the platforms that she uses. It has to be combined with the fact she has this huge platform in the show and her 100 million followers on social media. All those things together have given her the ability to hit $675 million in less than 3 years. She's going to reach $1 billion faster than the top 5 beauty brands in the world. Could not do it without this ripple effect of decisions that are made in combination. The third thing is sequence, the timing in which you do things. Dan Pink has written a really great book that came out this year called When. It's fantastic of getting you to understand that in his particular case, the time of day of what you do things has implications on how successful you're going to be. When you hold meetings, when you run, when you drink coffee, when you take a nap, everything has impact. So it's all about when. This is about sequence of decisions that you make over time. Another example, McDonald's, all-day breakfast. For a decade, McDonald's customers said, please bring Egg McMuffins all day. And what did McDonald's do? Actually, nothing. And what happened? They just continued to slow the growth, and finally hit a full-blown growth stall. For almost a decade, there was almost no growth to little growth. New CEO came in and said, I have an idea. Let's bring all-day breakfast. Everyone went, brilliant. Note to self, listen to customers. As Kirk says, So ultimately, they decided to launch all-day breakfast. Now, let's just pretend it was on a Friday. So he sends out a memo, let's pretend, and Monday morning they're going to launch all-day breakfast. I'll just let you know it would have failed, and it would have failed miserably. Why? Because you can't cook eggs and burgers at the same temperature on a grill. So you need 2 grills. You need to cut down the menu in order to allow another set of all these breakfast items to enter the menu. Otherwise, the drive-through line and the line in McDonald's would have actually gotten longer, and they already had a customer service, customer experience problem. So they had to do all that work through 3,000 franchisees to get it ready for the launch of McDonald's all-day breakfast. And then they launched. And what happened? No more growth stall. All of a sudden, growth started picking up and picking up. They had a good 3, 4, 5-year run. Now, they're at a growth stall again, starting to slow. So now they're pushing into digital, right? Always looking for how I actually deploy things globally. And by the way, they launched digital not in the US, because US doesn't adopt as quickly in digital as we see sometimes in emerging markets. More importantly, kind of in APAC, where you have the millennial generations never step foot in a bank, and everything they do is on a phone. And so walking into a McDonald's and ordering that way is no problem. Where in the US, you'll see people look at the screens and kind of go, is there someone to talk to? Like, we still haven't gotten there yet. But in other parts of the world, it absolutely is being very effective. And so I know this is the Ingram One event, but one of the common themes in the book is the one thing about growth is it's never one thing. Sort of the theme and the questions I often get from many of you in the room, both from the vendor side and the partner side, is, what's the one thing I can do? How do I stimulate growth? Should I spend more marketing money? Should I hire more salespeople? Should I strike a new partnership? And the one thing is, it's really all of those things. So I'm going to step through an example. It's picking one or many of the paths. So customer experience being one of them, which I talk about endlessly now, that to me, experience is the new product. It is no longer the shiny things we sell or the technology that we do. It is really the outcomes we drive and the way in which our customers leverage our technology. And so when you think about customer experience, you have to think about becoming a very customer-centric organization. The customer must become your true north in all the decisions that you make. Like, hey, our customers want all-day breakfast. Maybe that's what we should do. Or you go the Henry Ford model, and Henry Ford says, if I'd asked people what they wanted, we would have just made faster horses. So there's a huge span between all-day breakfast being the right decision and faster horses not being even an option. So we need to fall somewhere else in between there. But one thing I want you to catch from this is it's every single division in your organization. It is not sales. It is not marketing. It is not just customer service. It is everybody. And so the opportunity in front of us there is that 80% of us say that the experience a company provides is as important as the products they sell. And many of us will spend more for those better experiences, whether it's coffee with Starbucks, whether it's Uber surge pricing, whether it's the Four Seasons, whether it's flying business class or first class. We will spend more for a better experience. But the reality is that our customers are telling us we're not doing a good job of delivering on that. So we may think that we're delivering a great, compelling experience, but at the end of the day, our customers don't. So if you're not surveying your customers, like Kirk was talking about, Net Promoter Scores, and we're going to start to do it more often, they want to know from you, right? You're the canary in the coal mine. Are the efforts that they're doing actually working, improving the satisfaction of how you work with Ingram? You have to ask the customers what they think. Because 50% of us think these companies, many, that we work with on a daily basis, miss our expectations. I don't believe we have a technology problem. Listen, between our technology at Salesforce helping businesses on the sales, marketing, and customer service side, just to focus there for a second, it's really a people process. This is about getting uncomfortable about the way in which we organize our people and the processes we put to support the business that they do. One area we have huge opportunity for improvement is sales optimization. 57% of your sellers expect to miss quota. Whew. That's not a great stat. But what scares me more is 66% of their time is spent on non-selling activities. Whew. Even with all the advancements in CRM, even with all the advancements in AI and analytics, still, we struggle. They spend too much time on non-selling activities. How can we help them? Do you need another salesperson, or do you just need to make the salespeople you have be more effective? Sales and marketing alignment, such an old conversation, still struggling to figure out how to do it. For the marketers in the room, please go on a sales call. Just see what it's like when we show your PowerPoint that no one cares to see. Just a side note. No offense, marketers, I love you, but at the end of the day, it's all about what our customers want. The next one, which I think you really have an opportunity and people are really starting to pay attention to this, is customer service is the new Salesforce, 2 words. Customer success is what's important. You get a customer once, you earn their business one time, they open their wallet once, they continue to pay you dividends with their loyalty. And the way that happens is through customer service. And so the future for you, the future needs requires different partnership models. This is not a zero-sum game. Partners work with many companies. You guys work with an average of way more than this, because this was not just technology specific. You guys are probably 3x that. So you have to think about, as vendors, how do you onboard all these partners? How do you get them to distribute your products much more quickly? Millennials are mixing it up. Training new partners is very expensive. But we now have this multi-generational workforce. 75% of the channel will be millennial by 2024. What I want you to get from that is, how do you sell to a millennial buyer? Team buying. How do you train and onboard a new employee? How do you integrate a millennial into a generation or a workforce that has 5 generations of workers? It isn't about everything has to become millennial friendly. It's how do you integrate them into our ecosystem, into our nomenclature, into the way we do business. It cannot be we want to train them to do it our way. And so once again, the one thing about growth is it's never one thing. And so with that, this is my book. I think some of you are going to be getting it tomorrow, but I just want to take an opportunity to thank the Ingram team, and more importantly, just all of you for the support you've given me over the last probably 15 years in my career, as I have worked my way in and out of being in the channel on the analyst side and now back on the vendor side. But before I end this, I just want to say thank you to all of you who are customers of Salesforce. And more importantly, one last thing is, you guys have a really special opportunity today to hear Tom Peters speak. It's a full circle moment for me. It was the very first business book I ever read, In Search of Excellence, in 1983, when I was just born, I think, or something. No. I don't know. I was in high school. It was the first book my stepfather actually ever gave me on business. And then a full circle moment is I got the opportunity to meet Tom, and then more importantly, he read my book and gave me an endorsement for my book. He's just really a special human being. I think he's coming up next. But I just want to thank you guys for your time, attention, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Thank you.